By 2050, the Earth will need to feed over 10 billion people. But with climate change, soil degradation, and shrinking farmlands, how can we possibly succeed? The answer may be on your own plate, but is it a revolution or a catastrophe? Genetically Modified Foods, or GMFs, are crops that have had their DNA altered in a lab. Scientists insert specific genes from other organisms into these plants to give them new traits, like resistance to pests, tolerance to droughts, or enhanced nutrition. One well-known example is Bt corn. Scientists added a gene from a soil bacterium, Bacillus thuringiensis, so the plant produces a natural insecticide. Another is golden rice, engineered to produce beta-carotene, a source of vitamin A that can prevent blindness. These innovations are designed to solve real problems: crop loss, malnutrition, and overuse of harmful chemicals. But how exactly are these crops made? There are three main techniques used in genetic modification. One method is the gene gun, which literally shoots microscopic metal particles coated with DNA into plant cells. Some of the cells absorb the new DNA and start expressing the new traits. Another method uses a bacterium called Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Scientists modify this natural plant-invading bacterium so that instead of inserting harmful DNA, it inserts the gene they want into the plant's genome. A third method, called CRISPR-Cas9, acts like a precise molecular scissor. It allows scientists to target exact sequences of DNA, cut them, and insert or delete specific genes with incredible accuracy. These techniques transform ordinary crops into biotech powerhouses, but what happens when these modified plants enter the real world? Not everyone is convinced that GMFs are safe. While they offer real advantages, they also raise serious scientific concerns, many of which are still being studied. One major issue is gene flaw, where genetically modified crops grow near traditional or wild varieties. Their pollen can spread. This can unintentionally transfer modified genes into natural plant populations, altering ecosystems in unpredictable ways. In some countries like Mexico, native maize has been found to contain genes from GM varieties, despite restrictions. This kind of contamination threatens biodiversity and undermines farmers who want to grow GM-free crops. Another concern is that our research is still limited. Most studies on GM food safety are short-term and often conducted by the companies who produce the seeds. There is very little long-term independent research on how GM foods affect human health over decades. And then there's insect resistance. Just like bacteria can evolve resistance to antibiotics, pests can evolve resistance to Bt crops. Over time, these super pests may return stronger, forcing farmers back into using pesticides, defeating the original purpose. We also have to consider the effects on other organisms. Early studies once suggested that Bt corn might harm monarch butterflies. Later research suggested the risk is small, but it was a reminder that even helpful traits can affect the balance of ecosystems. Beyond the lab, GM foods raise deep ethical and economic questions. Many GM crops are patented, meaning farmers may buy new seeds every season instead of saving them. This can trap them in cycles of debt and dependency. In some communities, genetic modification challenges cultural values. For some people, altering the genetic code of living things crosses a moral line, one that science cannot justify alone. Others worry that GM crops could replace traditional varieties, leading to a loss of genetic diversity. If we rely on only a few engineered species, we may become more vulnerable to disease, climate change, or market collapse. Genetically modified foods are not inherently evil, nor are they a perfect solution. Science shows they have the potential to reduce hunger, cut chemical use, and adapt to climate stress. But science also warns us of the risks: gene escape, ecological impact, resistance, and the limits of our current testing. It's not about whether GMFs are good or bad, it's about how we use them, and whether we stay guided by rigorous long-term science instead of short-term profit. So what can we do? We can support transparent long-term research, We can make sure new technologies are tested, monitored, and regulated. We can protect native crops and biodiversity. And most importantly, we can stay informed and ask the hard questions. The decisions we make about GM foods won't just affect scientists or corporations. They will shape lives around the world. For smallholder farms, equitable access to biotechnology could mean greater yield and more stable incomes. But if the technology remains locked behind patents and high costs, it risks deepening inequality. Indigenous communities may seek protection for traditional crops and values, and consumers everywhere deserve transparency, clear labeling, unbiased research, and the ability to make informed choices. Any responsible approach must consider these diverse perspectives. Real progress depends on science, yes, but also on fairness, respect, and global cooperation. The power of GMFs is real, but so is our responsibility.